In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast, Richard Stayman and I, we are going to discuss the top NBA prospects in the Midwest region. Let's go. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board, and my co-host for today is Richard Stayman, one of the draft, I don't know how to put it, but very well known in NBA draft circles on social media. He's been around for years, and he is someone that has an eye for a lot of the prospects that are coming from mid-major schools or smaller schools, and this is a big opportunity for those prospects to play on a national stage in the NCAA tournament. So we're going to discuss some of the top prospects that you may have never heard of that will be playing in the Midwest region. But before we get started, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to, but faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because draft season is right around the corner. The NCAA season will be wrapping up. Well, I mean, we're near the end now. We're wrapping up in the next few weeks. And then after that, it is all in on NBA draft. So if you are a new listener and you just decided to start paying attention to draft content because you realize that your team is not going to make the playoffs, we have a bunch of episodes that you can go back, because we've been talking about the 2024 draft since August. It's been a while. I actually had a scout ask me, did I have a good hand or a grip on this class at a Mavericks game recently? And I was like, I've been talking about these guys since August. So I think I have a pretty good feel, even though this is a really wide open draft. And with this draft being so wide open, it leaves the opportunity for some guys to really make a name for themselves in the NCAA tournament. Maybe some guys could be like Dante DiVincenzo, who Leaf and I talked about yesterday as a guy that just kind of went from second rounder. Some people didn't think he was a top 50 player and ends up being a first round pick after having a strong NCAA tournament. So before we get too deep into the prospects, I wanted to just get your thoughts, Richard, on this overall NCAA tournament bracket. And what is your biggest memory of like a past NCAA tournament, whether you got like a bracket right? I shared mine yesterday. In 97, I predicted Arizona to win, and that's the only one that I've ever like got the winner correct. And
Wow.
so that was a long time ago. So I've been failing at draft predictions, or tournament predictions, for almost 30 years now.
Yeah, I think finding the champion is hard. This year I'm probably underthinking it or over. I don't even know what the right term would be. My champion's UConn, and I feel very confident in that, which means I'm going to be wrong. But my favorite memory, man, there was a year. It was the there were a couple years in a row. I mean, 13's always beat the fours. Like it's not that
Mhm.
rare, but there was a year where I think three of the four of them did it, and I got that right. And I think it was the same year Ohio. I think this would have been 2012, where Ohio beat Georgetown, and I had every one of those upsets on my bracket, and that was the peak of my bracket making right there. It was 12 years ago, so it was something. It might be tangling years, but any of those 413s, that's always been my forte on the brackets. That is the only area where I can offer insight. In
I got one.
terms of bracket making, what
Gotcha.
goes on behind the scenes, I can offer. I need to clear that up. I'm not just here.
Okay. I got one. A regret. So it was, I guess it was 2018. So I went to Creighton versus Kansas State in Charlotte. And the next game after that was Virginia against, was it the upset? Like, was it the 215 upset? It was Virginia.
This wasn't Virginia UMBC, right?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
the 16. That was the 116.
116. I left after Creighton lost to Kansas State. I left. I walked
Rafael,
out the
what?
arena. I was like, I'm not watching a 1 versus 16. I lived in Charlotte before, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go catch up with some friends. I'm only here for a little bit. And I just remember like walking around downtown and I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, okay, there's no way this is going to happen. So that is a regret for me that I was there in the arena hours before, but I left because I just didn't want to watch a 1 versus 16. So that's a regret. But anyway, let's talk about the
Yeah.
Midwest region. Who is your number one NBA prospect in this region?
It's not Zach Edey, believe that or not, because he is the number one player on the number one seed. For me, it's Dalton Knecht at Tennessee. I have Tennessee going very far because of him. I think this is also a year where we're usually skeptical of Rick Barnes, but they have their point guard. They got a killer defense. They have the shot maker. I think they got a lot going for him. But I mean, we've talked about Dalton Knecht so many times. Like you
Yeah.
put him on a team like Houston, Orlando, any of those guys, or any of those teams, immediate all rookie presence. So he's somebody, if you're going to watch one prospect, watch those Tennessee games because you're going to see him next to a good defense, which is likely his best outcome in the NBA is putting him on a team that has an established defense and just watch him do his magic. It is really fascinating as an outside scorer.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked about Connect at length over the last few months. Who's number two? The number two prospect for you?
Yeah, I this is the hard part for me because there are several guys where I think there's a lot of talent, but they kind of just blend together. My number two ranked player is actually completely out of left field. It's somebody who I feel very confident in. I feel like we talked about him before, but Anton Watson at Gonzaga,
Yeah.
it's not he's not
All
going to
right.
go as
Hold on. I gotta stop right there. I'm going to officially crown you the king of the Anton Watson bandwagon, the driver of the bandwagon, because nobody's talked about him like all season, but you're extremely high on him. Is it safe to say that he is? I mean, it's kind of late in the process, but is he like this year's Isaiah Wong and Mike Miles for you?
no. I haven't Isaiah Wong in the pipeline. I no, I really like him because he's like I to me, I just don't get why he's not on draft boards. I get it. He plays like power forward at 6'8". It's not ideal, whatever. It's shot, questionable translation. I totally hear it. But if you're looking from a year one to year four improvement with a guy who can play multiple positions that has grown on all of his weaknesses and finds a way to impact the game on both ends, it's Anton Watson. And really you could probably just make him a 6'8", do it all forward. Like I don't see why he can't be what Asar Thompson's role is, and he's a better shooter. And I know the athleticism differences, but the feel for the game is
You're
off
you're
the
you're,
charts.
you're going to get somebody's just going to like
It's
take that part of it, and that's all they're
of
going to.
course. But like, I mean, that's not what I said. He's not Asar Thompson, but like he could play that role where he's like a really weird. He's not a forward, but he plays the forward. He plays a front court spot. He's kind of positionless, right? But he does everything and shoots a little bit better.
Is the Gonzaga McNeese State, is that like an
That's a
upset?
trap game. That's a trap game. I like Kristen Shoemate. He can't shoot, but he is a freak athlete, and that McNeese State team is coached very well. I think whoever wins that is going to the Sweet 16. I don't trust Kansas, and I don't even think they're going to win, but I don't think Stanford's going to make it to the Sweet 16 either.
Okay, all right. Who is the number three prospect?
So it's Kevin McCullar at Kansas, right,
Is he
right
going to
on cue.
play?
That's the thing. I don't actually think he's going to play. There's
Yeah,
nobody's said it yet, but I mean, there's no reason to think he will.
yeah, man. It's unfortunate for Kev, man. He was having like a really, really good year. Started off on fire from three, was addressing like the biggest concern and,
Yep.
and knock on his game. And then you look at the numbers, he finished at like 33% from three, if I'm not mistaken, which is better than before, but not enough to move the needle, in my opinion, for somebody that I think this is year five for him.
Yep.
And then just at the wrong time, the injuries. And then now I just think like the injuries are starting to pile up from ankle to back and knee, just at the wrong time for him. And I think it's going to really have an impact on his draft status because I don't even know if he's a lock to go in the first round now, just
Yeah.
because teams are so concerned about the knee. All right, well, when we return, we're going to talk a little bit more about prospects in the Midwest. Of course, we are going to have to talk about Zach Edey, who has now, in my opinion, become the most divisive prospect in this draft class because there are people who love him and there are people who just think like he can't play in today's NBA, at least not an effective role. I know me and Leaf have talked about it before, but just wanted to get your opinion. All right, stay tuned for more talk on the top prospects in the Midwest region. All right, before we get into the second segment, I wanted to talk about our new sponsor, which is called Stitch Fix. How many of you know the confidence you feel or just the boost in confidence when you get a outfit and you feel like you look good, you look fresh, your confidence is up. Maybe you feel like you're going out and maybe you're going out and you're going to get the attention of the ladies. Well, Stitch Fix can help you feel that way consistently because they will get you a stylist that understands your style, your size, and more importantly, your budget. They do all the shopping for you, and it is the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. You can easily upgrade your looks this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on trend favorites that will work for you. All you have to do is give the stylist your size, your style, and your budget, and boxes will come when you want, and you don't have to have a subscription, and they'll send you 5 pieces just for you, outfit recommendations and pro styling advice, and you get to keep what works, and if there's something that you don't like, you can send it back, and your stylist will send you all the right pieces. The fit is up to point, and they have just a knack for style, and it makes it so easy. If you don't like to shop, you can save time and effort. Plus, you can get all the outfits that will make you look good. Like I said, if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. So step your style up, your swag, your look with Stitch Fix. It has style that makes you feel as good as you look. You can get started today at stitchfix.com/locked on. That is Stitch, STITCHFIX.com/locked on. Again, stitchfix.com/locked on. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. And if you are a baseball fan, mark your calendar for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best Major League Baseball season preview, which will be coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. Remember, March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Be the first to get local insight from all the local Major League Baseball experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find it March 20th, 7 p.m. on Locked On Sports Today, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, streaming on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, second segment, we talked a little bit about Kevin McCullar. We talked about Dalton Knecht. I want to talk about Zach Edey. I don't know if he's like number 4 on your rankings, but Edey is very divisive. I mean, I've had so many different debates, and I try to make them short because you're not going to change anybody's mind at this point with Zach Edey. But I've had people say, I just don't understand how a guy that doesn't miss 7'4" is not going to succeed in the NBA. In my opinion, I'm like, dude, it's 2024. It's not 2004. It's not like you're going to dump the ball into him. And I saw Gilbert Arenas. I don't think they even said his name. And I try not to listen to too much of the the Gil show because I feel like he's either like spot on or he has like this crazy wild take for aggregation purposes. I don't think they mentioned his name in this particular episode where they were like bashing NBA scouts and saying NBA scouts don't know what they're doing. But they mentioned like Zach Edey. They basically said his name without saying his name, and they were just like, he's not an NBA player. You draft him, you're gonna get fired. Which we've seen somebody make a bold take like that about a prospect before, and kind of backfired on them. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Zach Edey?
Yeah, I think first of all, we talked about this last year with Trace Jackson Davis, and we're gonna have a similar conversation. I think not just us, but like just draft discourse about it is he probably like he's in college, Zach Edey. and Trace Jackson Davis, both of them, their entire scoring arsenal was within 10 feet of the rim at the most, probably within five.
I was about to say two,
Yeah, at the
three.
most. That is at the most. Yeah, five is really stretching. But in the NBA, that's not going to happen. You can't camp in the paint like not camp in the paint, but like you can't live down low. Like it's just not how the NBA works anymore. Like you said, it's not 2004. The thing that worries me the most, and I do think before I even get to this, I want to preface, I think he actually is like offensively, he's totally skilled enough to be in the NBA. Like 7'4", he has a really good post game. His shot is better, I think, than it's ever shown because he hasn't shown it. But and like also like the handoffs, like how do you stop him on a handoff? He's massive. Like you clear so much space for your guard out of a handoff or whoever's getting it. But the defense scares me so much because in isolation, Purdue has been able to hide it. You can't hide stuff like that in the NBA very easily. You can work around it and lessen it. You can't hide it. And with him, you get a simple in and out. Has he's really off balance, and from there you can do anything. Like just imagine him, like think about how many athletic guards are in the NBA compared to the Big Ten, and that combination of athleticism and skill, they're going to be able to burn past him, and that's going to limit the amount of minutes he can play, and that's why he's not like at best he's a very late first rounder for a team that needs a big desperately for me.
All right, here, and this is not my opinion, but this is what was presented to me, and I wanted to get another opinion on it. Someone says he moves just as well as Brook Lopez, and Lopez is considered a good defender. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one, the scheme of Milwaukee saved Brook Lopez's defensive reputation. Second, it's a little bit different. The balance, if you watch Brook Lopez, like he keeps his base so like square all the time. Like he's never really got one leg. Like he's not relying too much on one leg ever too much. And I feel like Zach Edey doesn't say you can't say the same for Zach. Like his balance is just worse. I really don't know how else to put it. I think that's the key differentiator. You can hit him with a crossover, and yeah, Brook might turn his back. He might get burned a little because that's most bigs, but Zach is especially prone to it.
Yeah, I think he'll just need to master angles. If I were like in Zach Edey's camp, and I love to like think of like different scenarios to help a guy, I just study Marc Gasol tape and just study like mastering like these angles. Like I remember just having this conversation with a friend of mine that played in the NBA, and it was years ago. I was like, man, I don't understand why Marc Gasol is such a good defender. And like at the time I was younger, I saw a good defender as being like athletic and guys that like I thought DeAndre Jordan was a great defender because of athleticism. But he explained to me why Marc Gasol was so great at defense despite never leaving the ground and so on. So if I were like Zach Edey, I'd just be studying a bunch of Marc Gasol tape on how he just mastered cutting off angles. And even then, I still think there's still some concerns about that. All right, who is the next prospect on your list from the Midwest region? I'm sorry, I kind of put Zach Edey into your mix and kind of threw it off if he wasn't number four.
No, I had one player in front of him, and then it was Zach Edey, and that's Trey Alexander. I mean, if you remember last year at the combine, Trey Alexander measured with a ridiculously long wingspan. I think it was like 6'9", 6'10".
Hmm.
It was really long. He's 6'4". Um, he didn't do like just looking at his stats, like he didn't break out, I think, like people wanted him to, but it was still pretty good. The 3-point shot, like that just fell off, but he shot 80% from free throw every single year. I still trust him. I think he's somebody that if Creighton goes to the Elite Eight, which is a very, very real possibility, I think he's somebody that could rise big time.
He's kind of, I don't want to keep using the word divisive. Like there's some people that like him, and there's some people that I've spoken with that are just like, I don't know what he does well. Like he does some things well, but I just don't know like his thing, especially with the shooting not being there. They're like he's not really big enough to play the two. He's not a one. He's just a really good player, but what's the skill set to hang his hat on? What is your answer to that? Because you've been high on him for a while.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think he's just an all-around point guard. I don't think he has like any one trait, but like, what's his major weakness at the same time? Like, we're seeing in this NBA, like, yes, of course, you need that standout trade and to have secondary options to go with it. But I think it's almost more important as a foot in the door to have a bunch of skills. If you don't have that elite skill, you can't have a flaw. And I really don't know what his like glaring flaws that keeps him out of the NBA at the
Would you
same
say
time. Like,
I mean, I guess this year you could probably say the shooting could be it because like it's
yeah,
really fallen off a cliff. And I think like if you really, and that's why you can't always just like go into the numbers in a sense. I know there was a game, I think I forgot who it was, where it was like one of the worst shooting nights that I've ever seen a prospect have. He was 1 for 16, 0 for 5 from three in the game earlier this year. I mean, those numbers are gonna kill your stats. It was like right around Thanksgiving, so it may have been, was it the Nebraska game? I'm not sure, but he's had some like really off shooting games that have
yep.
impacted his 3-point shooting percentage. He's down to like 32.7% this year, and it was significantly higher last year. So I think the shooting decline is alarming, but you're talking about a guard that averaged like nearly 6 rebounds and 5 assists per game. And I like him a lot. He shot 45% overall. So imagine if you take that 1 for 16 game out, the numbers would
Yep.
even look a little bit better just as far as his percentages. But there are people that don't even think he's the best prospect on his own team.
No, it's not Kalkbrenner. I'm out on Kalk. I'm not gonna lie.
Shireman.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I also don't like him that much, but I'd rather be Shireman than him.
All right, so here's a little off subject a little bit. I mean, it's on subject. Actually, no, we're going to talk about this when we return. I want to get your opinion on this potential matchup that we could see in the Midwest. Stay tuned. All right, last segment, and I'm just kind of throwing Richard off a little bit here. I know this is about his top prospects. So I've had this question presented to me. I talked about it with Leaf. Someone asked me, well, what is the difference between Dalton Knecht and Baylor Scheierman? Why is there a huge difference as far as
Mm-mm.
uh-oh.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, this is gonna be fun. Why the
No.
question was, why is there a huge difference as far as draft range? They're both older. The Shireman's numbers from three, I don't have them right in front of me, aren't that much different. Is it the athleticism? Why one could be a lottery pick and one could possibly go undrafted? Because they said if you look at the numbers, Shireman is a better rebounder, better passer, and the passing and the rebounding numbers are like significantly better.
I think it's okay. I get it. If you just did a blind resume, maybe. But what scoring option do you think on a in the NBA are they both the fifth option or both fourth option? What like when they're out there, what are their scoring options? I think Shireman's a fifth option personally. Like
Yeah, I
he's the
mean,
shooter. That's it.
yeah, I mean, I think there's a
Because
role for him as a connector. I mean, he's a
agreed.
very good rebounder and very good passer. I think he brings a little bit more to the table if the shot isn't falling. And at 6'7", I mean, a rebounder, passer, and like, there's a part of me that feels like because Connect's games are so explosive and he is like the flavor of the month. He's had like 1 year where people are really like paying attention to him, while Shireman has kind of been on radars for
Yeah.
at the minimum 2 years. I mean, he shot 47% his last year at like South Dakota State or something like that, and
Yep.
people started kind of talking about him. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge gap. Some people may say it could be like a 40 pick gap between them or 30, but Shireman averaged 18 a game this year, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 37% from three.
Yeah, the numbers are nice. I mean, I just again, I feel like if you put here's my thing. If you swapped them two in their roles, Creighton gets better. Tennessee gets worse. And I think that's the important thing is where Dalton Knecht can truly take over games. And it's not always with the scoring. Yes, Baylor Scheierman can like take over in different ways where he's setting his teammates up without ever scoring the ball. And then like the cherry on top is he hits a moving three. It is very nice. The problem is though, like in the NBA, you have to have stretches. If you're going to stay on the floor for extended minutes in offense, you have to be able to get hot. Like you have to be able to do that takeover games. I think that's the difference between a top 20 pick and a second round pick. At least in the gamble, maybe Shireman does it better spacing, a whole different context. I just think Dalton Knecht's explosive ability to score the basketball is the big separator as a first
I don't,
option too. And like
I don't think
teams
you got to
game
be
plan
able
wise.
to take over games as a first round pick. Like, Can Jet Howard take over games?
No, 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 no. Sorry. Like to get that stock, like that's what does it. Like in college, like the guys who are taking over or upside, it's like one of those two. I do feel
Yeah.
like that's the big difference. That's what separates a first round grade and a second round grade.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think their roles in the NBA are going to be the exact same, in my opinion. Space the floor, be a complimentary guy. I don't know if Connect is going to. I mean, if you like think of a team that you put him on, is he going to get? Is he even going to get the opportunities to really create and get hot? Like if he goes to in Orlando or some of these teams. So I think
I
in the
think so.
NBA, they're both going to be shooters, floor spacers that complement the dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think so though. Like, I mean, just with Orlando, I mean, they have Paolo and Franz run the show, but their whole system is like somebody else gets hot and we take that. Like, they need the shooting so badly, and that might be somewhere where Baylor also does well. Maybe I'm dismissing that too much, but I do think that's somewhere like Dalton Knecht can be that guy where everyone focuses on Franz and Paolo and they think they can just let up elsewhere. That's when guys like Dalton Knecht, that's when they force themselves onto the game.
Yep. All right, who's the next prospect in the Midwest bracket?
All right, this one, well, technically it's Zach Edey, but we got him. This next one's a little bit of a hot take. I think this is somebody who should get a first round pick. I don't know if he actually comes out, but it's a long term game here, and it's Kwame Evans. I really have grown to like his game way more than I ever thought I would because I thought he was really stiff athletically at first, didn't buy the jump shot, and now all of a sudden I'm looking at it from a different perspective, and I'm like, how does this guy not find his way onto an NBA court?
Yeah, with him, I was when I watched this film in high school, I was like, okay, I kind of get the appeal. It's like if he does this, if he puts it together, he'll be this. Then he got off to the slow start, and then I started to see it a little bit. He had a stretch. I want to say maybe it was like in January where I was like, okay, I'm starting to see it. And then now it's like, I mean, it's one of those things where I see like, all right, he gets drafted and then he goes to a team and he's in the second round pick and it's like what's the guy Josh Minot, like a similar situation where it's like, all right, where is he going to play if he goes to a good team in the second round if he's not able to like space the floor? So I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, I think his feel for the game is just so off the charts though that he's somebody who he makes things happen with the ball in his hands on defense. Like I think he's one of the most fundamentally sound players in this entire draft. The way that he always has his high hands, like it's just so the coaching cliches, every single one of them Kwame Evans has. So I really like his ability to grow and he's still pretty raw and he's got the free throw percentage. I trust that over the 3-point percentage. I love his game.
Yeah, in my notes I have great long-term potential, just doesn't pop out on film.
Yeah,
And
which is
for me,
fair.
when I watch film on a guy, it's kind of like listening to a song. Like, there's some guys where within the first 5 seconds, like I like this
Yep.
dude, and then there's some guys I'm just like, oh man, I've watched 80 clips on Synergy, and I've put out my phone, I'm texting, it's just boring.
Which is completely fair though.
And I got to go
I
back and watch it again because I got distracted or whatever. It's so Kwame just doesn't pop out on film to me, but I get the intrigue with the defensive upside and skill set and just as like this. I mean, he's long and he's rangy. You see the handles. I mean, it's a lot to work with. You just have to really trust your developmental staff. But I get it. I get it. Who's next for you?
Yeah, there's a drop off here. I know I know your guy hasn't been called at South Carolina, but I'm gonna skip him for a second. My next one is
Murray
Emmanuel.
Bowles.
Yeah, just to address why he's dropped on this, he's 6'7", he doesn't shoot. I'm way skeptical on that, where I don't think he can be above these guys who have that path right away. For me, the next one's Emmanuel Miller at TCU. I've bought into every single improvement he's made. I've heard for years how hard his work ethic is. Never saw it too much on the stat sheet, like a big pop until this year when fifth year senior. And I think while you should be skeptical of fifth year senior jumps, this one's an exception. Like again, I cannot emphasize enough how hard he's worked on the jump shot, the free throw percentage, 3-point percentage, all those career volume highs, career percentage highs. It's all real. The defense is real. The passing's improved. He hustles like he is a king of the hustle plays. I feel like that sticks.
Yeah, I mean, everything I heard about him last year in the pre-draft process was he surprised everybody. I heard he played well. I heard he was the best player at different workouts, but there was some concern because even though the numbers were good last year, it wasn't like super great. Like basically what I heard was his showing in NBA workouts last summer were better than his film on at TCU. So teams were still trying to figure out what is what. So I think this year they kind of have a better feel for him. You think he's draftable? You think he gets drafted, or do you think he's a two-way guy that
Yeah.
finds a way?
I think regardless of draft, he's going to end up on a two-way, but I think he's a final 5 to 10 picks guy. Um, Probably goes undrafted because he's older, right? Like, I mean, he's Leonard Miller's older brother. Is I think 23, will be 24. So he's not super young. I get it, but like I think he's somebody you look at right away. Like my whole thing, especially in a draft that's labeled as bad like this, you got to find the guys that can hit right away. That's how you stand out as an NBA team. That if you're not going to be able to find a superstar, find somebody who can just help trim around the edges and get you like get a nice 10th man. Like, and that's what Emmanuel Miller is right now. And he could grow into that ninth, eighth, seventh, whatever man. And I think he can really grow into it, just a nice role on the wing.
I have a prospect for you. I want to hear your thoughts on. We've talked about him before. We saw him at the combine last year. I felt like, man, he should have shut it down after the first day with a
Mm,
pulled hamstring or sore ankle. And
yeah.
he's gotten better. Dillon Mitchell, he's
Yep.
improved, but he has absolutely no draft buzz right now. And maybe it's a situation, it could be a situation where like the media isn't talking about him, but there's a team that likes him. And then on draft day, you're like, whoa, he was the 27th pick. It's
Yep.
kind of like Peyton Watson in a sense. I think that could be a surprise. But if you look at the numbers, he averaged 4 points a game last year, and he moved it to 10 points, 7 rebounds, 59% from the floor. But he's like the 6'8" wing body, but I think he's a five.
Yep.
What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on him?
It's funny. I just pulled up my notes on him, and I what I wrote was I looking at it now, I'm like, were my expectations so low that I thought he was great, or is he actually good and like he did, make someone walk away like whatever the average bar is and what he have met in. I actually do think yes. Some of the stuff I wrote down just from the scrimmages at the combine last year or that entire week where okay, the shot like killed it. And then also he connected the defense a lot. Like he played a good role on I think just good defensive possessions. And then most importantly, like the NBA tempo showed in that in NBA spacing where it's just 5 out a lot more. And actually, I felt that's when he was able to be his best in showcasing his athleticism. With this year, though, I think he the defense is still very good. That hasn't changed. Jump shot has almost been forced into his game. I actually like it, even though sometimes I hate it based on the result. The thing that he's got to improve on, though, is just the offensive awareness because he knows what he has to do, but he doesn't know what everyone else has to do and how to connect that. Like he does on defense. He knows how to do that on defense. Does he know how to do that on offense? Because too many times I think he's like, okay, I got the ball at the rim. The only thing I can do now, and he's got tunnel vision, is shoot. When I've seen him too many times, he cuts and all he has to do is make that next pass to the corner when he's at the rim. If he can get that down, that's going to open up his game so much. But just improving that awareness with the ball in his hands and where he is, I think will go a long way.
Yeah, it's such a weird story, man. We're talking about a guy that was highly touted coming out of high school. Some people thought he was going to be a top 10 pick as a freshman after his freshman year. Doesn't have a good number, a season on paper as a freshman. Goes to the combine, plays well, made some jumpers in the combine, comes back on day two when everybody else that played well shut it down. Didn't really do anything. Goes back to school, averages 10 points, improves statistically in every category except field goal percentage, but I mean, you can expect it to go down with a higher volume. And right now he has like zero buzz. And I'm like, all right, do you enter the draft this year where it's risky? Or do you go back to school another year and your stock could be even worse because now there's like 90 to 100 games of film for teams to evaluate you on. I think it's so important to like leave while you're hot. And last year, for one day, in my opinion, he was hot. And now it's just like there's no buzz. I'm going to do some research, maybe talk to some teams and just kind of get a feel where he's at. But I mean, in the draft world, like draft Twitter and like different draft media outlets, the buzz is like gone.
Yeah, I think he's somebody again, like if you, whatever happens at the combine this year, he has to stop while he's ahead.
Yeah.
Like learn from your mistakes.
Yeah. Do you think a strong NCAA tournament could change everything for him? And like, what does that look like? Is it just like doing what he does, like great energy plays, or I mean, I just can't see a situation where he's like coming down and knocking down threes or whatever. But what do you think
Yeah.
is like a best case scenario for him?
Yeah, I don't see him coming in just walking into a three in transition or something. But there was a game, it was against Kansas. It was when they had lost, but this was pretty recent too. Or maybe it wasn't Kansas. Hold on. It was one of these games we had a big performance. Maybe it was Houston, one something like that, right? It was Houston. They lost by 4, but he showed out and had a monster game, and he was really the thing that kept Texas in it for a while, complimenting the guards, cutting, like playing good defense. Obviously, the Big 12 is known for its defense, so I think if he just brings that grit while being able to take 10 shots and make at least 60% of them, he's in good shape. So I think it's possible. The thing is, I don't think they're going to be eventually Colorado State. But real fast, can we just talk about this? And I missed somebody because I counted Virginia out so badly. Ryan Dunn technically is in the mix. I don't expect them to win it. But can we just talk about for like 2 seconds? If we get Ryan Dunn versus Dillon Mitchell, has there ever been a more Spider-Man meme pointing at each other ever in college basketball, in the March Madness ever?
Yeah, I mean they're gonna like have a great performance and they combine for like 12 points.
12? Oh man, that's generous. The teams might combine for like 12.
Yeah, I just think they're very similar. I mean, even with Dillon Mitchell, he's like up to like 60% from the foul line this year, but it was 40% last year. The last game he played, he was 6 of 6 from the floor, but he was 1 of 5 from the free throw line. And I just wonder, like with both of those guys, are they going to have to play 5 in the NBA? And when I say 5 in the NBA, I know people are just like, you're crazy. But if you really look at it, Derrick Jones Jr. played a lot of 5 for Chicago. There's even lineups with Dallas where he is the 5 man. And I think that's the role of both of those guys, where they're
Yep.
kind of like they're like your de facto vertical lob threat, but it's a small lineup where I mean, of course you can't like play them at the 5 against Valanciunas or somebody like that. But I do think there is a world where they play some 5. But the problem is I don't know if they'll be able to shoot or develop into the shooter that Derrick Jones has been able to, based off of what we've seen in 2 years of college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, people forget too. I think like in again depends on the lineups. Like if you have Valanciunas out there, you're not doing the same thing as if you're going against like when LeBron was at the 5, right? Whenever they played more positionless, like in Miami. But a lot of that is if you're just the cutter that's cutting down low, and you got 4 guards, 3 guards, 2 guards, and 2 wings, whatever that combination. You're the 5. You're not expected to play. Like this isn't 2K. They're not just going to say, all right, post up, post up. They're actually just saying, hey, just live at the rim. And if
Yeah.
that's the case, like, why isn't Derrick Jones even like this is a very optimistic statement, but why isn't Derrick Jones Dillon Mitchell's absolute best case scenario?
Yeah. No, that's
Not just because they're
that's
lefty athletic, but
yeah.
more than that.
Yeah, I saw a stat and I'll wrap it up with this. Last year, Derrick Jones spent 96% of his minutes at the 4 or the 5. And he is what, 6'6",
On a
210?
generous day, 6'7".
So I do think that is like their comparison. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. This was a fun episode. This is a fun time as we're getting down to the nitty gritty, and it's going to be a lot of NBA draft content coming up over the next few weeks. And then I will do a region. My brother James is coming up next to do a region. And then we're going to talk about, obviously, the results of the of some of the games coming up at the end of the week. Well, once again, it's Rafael, Barlowe and Richard Stayman, and we are out.